And we don't take that lightly. We take all the threats seriously, just as the school system does. And so we, within a very short period of time, under 3 minutes, we had probably close to 16 officers on scene. And that's between the PD, the ESO. We had DCI was there, just because the local DCI heard it come out and came to assist. So
I talked with Brooke Bickford yesterday, and I know, and Brooke's 46, and my son's 40. When they were in school, they had bomb threats at Fort Dodge Senior High, and they'd go over to senior high. I don't know if you were on the force that far back or not. Brooke was graduated in 96 and Luke in 2001, I believe. Yeah, but anyway, they took the kids, all the kids were immediately taken out of school and sent over to Fort Dodge Senior High, or Dodger Field. Dodger Stadium, while the police came in with bomb dogs and those sorts of things. And fortunately, nothing ever happened. I think they caught one of the kids that did that. Yep. And he just didn't want us to go to school that day. So.
Yeah, we had a lot of that. I remember that.
I thought I was a bad boy for smoking in the boys' room. Jeez. But I guess with all the terrible, violent things that have been happening in our schools the last 15 years, certainly, starting with, 20 years if you want to go back to Columbine, and I guess we do. Columbine was in Colorado in 1999, so we've had a long history of ugly, terrible school shootings. A shockwave went through the community. And I know there was a lot of activity on social media last night. And, of course, having been on social media myself, I don't really count the things I see on social media as the truth.
Well, that's good.
People get scared, or they want to get attention, or they want to raise their status somehow to greater than they are.
If I can give you a little history about the collaboration that the local law enforcement, and the school system has had for the past 10 years, we have comprised of school safety meetings where we're all involved, and that's not just the Fort Dodge schools. Because we have the sheriff's department involved in it, so we address issues and concerns with Fort Dodge schools, St. Edmunds, all the little or smaller schools that are in Webster County. So we are all on the same page. So we've been doing that for a good 10 years, if not longer. And we used to meet on a monthly basis. Now we pretty much meet on a quarterly basis. Over the past 6 years, law enforcement and the school has worked together to train in SRP, Standard Response Protocol, which includes lockdowns and lockouts, but it also includes shelter in place and evacuation, your fire drills and your tornadoes and stuff like that. So we're all on the same page when we are responding to any of those types of incidents. The school has I think the citizens of this community, and I've had 3 kids going through the school system, and I couldn't be more proud of the school system that these guys have established here, whether it's parochial or public schools. We go on site once a year and do drills with the staff and the new staff and everybody.
Active shooter drills. Well, is that what we call them or not?
Well, we call them standard response protocol drills because, a lockdown can go into a situation where it might not just be an active shooter. There could be something else, some other type of a threat or a domestic threat or something happening outside where you would do a secure the perimeter type threat. So, right by the train tracks, if you had a hazardous train spill right there, you would use the standard response protocol. So we don't, right. So the standard response protocol is to be adopted for pretty much every situation that you can possibly think of. And active shooter is part of that response. Mm-hmm. So we train on that with the schools, St. Ed's and the public schools. We train on that on an annual basis. We visit all the school buildings and do tabletops every year, and that's according to law, actually, right now.
Tabletops?
Yeah, we'll do a tabletop exercise, and have a discussion.
I see.
And it might be a tornado. It might be an active shooter. It might be a high-risk traffic stop that were conducted outside of a school. What's your response? And they fall back on the training. And all that training that we've done over the past few years fell into place yesterday. And I can't say... for a chaotic situation like it was yesterday, I can say that it went absolutely smoothly because both law enforcement and the school staff fell back on all that training that we've been doing over the past years. And thank God that we are able to have that collaboration with each other and those partnerships, because it would have been a lot more hectic and a lot more tiresome. But
it might have been a lot more dangerous.
Absolutely.
If that young man hadn't have stepped up. And I'm just sick about what I've often gone on about gun rights and all that sort of thing. But my God, the idea of somebody taking a gun into school just makes me sick to my stomach.
And that was a lot of this. There was a lot of rumor. I read some of the posts or comments on social media yesterday with they heard gunshots and there was a guy walking around. And this individual was in custody. He was detained very quickly after the information got out. There was never any gun. No gun was located or found. He wasn't walking up and down hallways. There was no shots fired or anything like that, but we fall back on that standard response protocol because our primary, I've also seen where on those posts that it was 2 hours before any information got out. Well, I know for a fact that the school had sent some out within 20 to 25 minutes after we got the initial call. There was at least something going out to at least the parents of the middle school. It might not have gone out district wide, but it went to the parents of the middle school.
I want to tell you, and everybody listen to me, please. At 2:15 yesterday, Brooke was on the air with me. Brooke Bickford, our news director. Yeah. And she comes on once a week just to do kind of a week in the rewind, a news rewind. And while she was on the air, she got a text that there was something happening at the school and there apparently a threat had been made.
Yeah.
And she reported it as just that.
Yeah.
That a threat had been made, period, end of story. And she went to follow it up right away. We followed it, or she followed it, I should say. I was just here running the controls. But she followed that story for 2 hours. Yeah. And she never gave an indication of any of the things that you mentioned.
Yeah.
So we're half of the local media scene here, here in Fort Dodge. I think we're actually 75%. Yeah. But the point is, she had it on the news of the other stations. There would have been no reason for that sort of wild speculation.
Yeah, I get, parents are scared, people are scared. I get it. I got a kid in the school, that would, if I wasn't wearing this and able to go in, I'd be scared too. But I will say that, like I said, the training is taken very seriously. The schools take this very seriously. The law enforcement takes this very seriously. And when we go into a situation like that, it's a fluid situation, and our primary concern is are the safety of those kids. It is what it is, but that's the primary concern, the safety of those kids and anybody else that's in that building. And we're going to go in there and do what we need to do. And so, we can't stop and make phone calls and send out emails on what's happening at that point in time. We have to deal with the incident at hand, and the staff's going to be that way too. So I understand they want the information as soon as possible, and we will get it to them as soon as possible, but you got to prioritize that a little bit, and I just want to reassure the parents in this community that if something like that happens, we're doing it because that's the way we train on it. That's the way that's going to make the people inside that building the most safe. And that's the way we're going to continue to do it, because that's our ultimate goal, is to make sure that we make the kids and the staff in that building safe.
As you say, you have a kid in school now. My one son is grown, but if you tell a parent that someone has made a threat like that, and then the kids can't get out of school, you know what the deal is.
Right.
I'm going to ask if your training includes dealing with distraught, angry, and frightened parents.
Yeah, and that's part of the standard response protocol, because that's more common than an active shooter. That's more common to get an upset parent that comes in, or we've had parents that come in upset with the school. We've had parents come in that, if they're going through a nasty divorce and one wants to get the kid out of school or something like that, and they get upset. So, dealing with that type of situation is more common. And again, you fall back on the standard response protocol that we put in place. It's no big secret. And we've given, the school has put out to the parents over probably a handful of times over the last few years, where law enforcement and the schools would partner up, and we'd meet in the high school auditorium area there and just discuss what our response is going to be. And we invite the parents to come. Unfortunately, we've only, our biggest one, I think, was 40 or 50 parents show up. But that's
good. Anyway.
That's where we pass that information on, so we can kind of train that. We're looking at different ways to get that information out a little bit more, because, like I said, it's not, people say you can't do that because then you're telling people what you're going to do. Well, you know what? You can Google it. You can find out exactly what any response is going to be. We want to make sure that it's no different than a tornado or a fire drill. You know what that response is going to be, and we're still going to go directly to what we got to do. So it's not a secret.
Well, once again, I'd like to compliment our news director, Brooke Bickford. She went out to the school and was actually taking video of what's happening out there. And some of the parents were, as we say, very upset, understandably upset. And just a really, thank God again for that young man who went right to a person of authority and reported this, because we're told constantly, whenever we hear of one of these grotesque, twisted crimes like a school shooting, we're told over and over and over again by federal, state, and local authorities, if you see something, say something.
Absolutely.
And this young man did that.
Absolutely.
And I hope that's a lesson that we take away from this. I don't know how serious this young man who made the threat was, but obviously that's a sign that something's wrong, real wrong. So I'm glad that young man had the courage to do what he did.
I am as well. So.
Wow. Anyway, as far as the young man is concerned, I understand he's at the Youth Training Center in Eldora now.
Correct.
Okay. And has he been charged?
Yes, he was charged yesterday with threat of terrorism, which is a D felony, and then first-degree harassment, which is an aggravated misdemeanor.
Okay.
So far, and we're continuing the investigation. We're looking, into every avenue and everything. So until we want to make sure we dot all of our I's and cross all of our T's, and so it's still ongoing, and we'll wrap it up when we feel that we've done everything that we can totally exhaust on this case. So.
I don't need to know, but we're never going to find out the name of this kid, are we? I mean, he's too young to have his name released.
We can't publish his name or anything.
Not now, not ever, right?
Right.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Well, and that's right and correct, as far, at least as far as I'm concerned. But again, a very, very scary situation in our town. I guess I never asked. I just assumed he was a Fort Dodge school student.
Yeah, it happened at
he was a student at the middle school.
Correct.
Okay. All right.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, it'd been a lot weirder if he wasn't.
Well, that's happened too.
Yeah, it has. Jim Kirsten. Gosh, he was in that parade shooting in Chicago. Yeah. His family was.
Yeah, he called me on that.
Oh God, just. Yeah. We got to do something. We have a spiritual crisis, and how young people get guns, I don't know. But even as again a gun rights supporter, we've got to do something about this. Again, the thought of these school shootings even thought of it just makes me absolutely sick, and to have it come so close to us here in our little town where we don't really expect it. Yeah, it's just it's a rough way to go.
Yeah.
Is there anything else we can say about this, Roger?
No, and I just want to reiterate, like I said, the school and the police and local law enforcement has been very proactive on this for a number of years. It's one of those things we train on a lot and hope we never have to use, but when we do have to put the protocols into place that our utmost biggest responsibility that we see both is the safety of the kids and stuff in there. So if we're in there doing something and we haven't been in a lockdown, please rest assured that we're doing this because this is the safest way so your kid comes home at night.
Yeah, my God.
And that's what we want to do. So,
well, I understand Luke Fleener, Sheriff Fleener, has had a lot of training and experience, and he's even been a trainer.
He still is a trainer, and that's one of the good things we have going on here. I talk about the partnerships, and that's one of the other great partnerships. He goes around the country and trains other law enforcement agencies on this. I mean, all around the country. He's been everywhere from the East Coast to the West Coast.
I've heard that, yeah.
And big, small departments, it doesn't matter. And I believe him when he says this, and a lot has to do with the fact that he brings that teaching back to us, is that we're one of the most prepared communities that he's ever been in, just because the law enforcement is so well trained, the school staff is so well trained. I mean, you see a lot of them a lot farther behind the eight ball than we are, and when it comes to that.
Sure.
So we're lucky with that aspect. So.
Was the sheriff's department involved in any way yesterday?
Yep, we had deputies on scene there.
Okay.
So,
all right. I just went to Randy Kuhlman, over the Community Foundation. I don't think it was this week. I think it was last week. Over at the Presbyterian Church, we had a meeting on the safety of children in regard to internet.
Yep.
And one of the police officers was there, a female officer, and one of at least one, maybe two of the sheriff's department, or maybe it was a male and female Fort Dodge police officers. You had
one male and one female police officer. One from the male was from Alex is from the sheriff's department, and then Joel Lynn, who is from the police department.
Right.
They both work. They partner in our crimes against children division.
That was the theme, yeah. And I was just shocked by what I was seeing. I'm not. Well, I'm a poor standard to use because I'm an older man, but the the things that young people have to deal with.
Yeah.
I mean, there was a scenario where a grown man had been enticing young girls
Yeah.
to expose themselves, and then he threatened to
Blackmail
them by posting their partially exposed pictures to all their friends.
Yeah.
And he even got one case was cited where the man had actually assaulted girls. They tracked him down in Mexico or something, and
Yeah.
thank God he's in prison. But I guess this happens all the time.
Yeah, it does, unfortunately.
And grown men,
Yeah.
well, I suppose some women are involved, but I suppose it's mainly some sick guys.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm glad. I guess what we can take away is a lesson again. So happy and glad, and we feel blessed that nothing else happened than what it did. And it's a reminder to us all: if you see something, say something. And we're glad you could stop in and tell us
Not a problem.
and assure us really that training is ongoing, and
It's ongoing. It has been for the last 6-7 years. So
sick world sometimes,
yeah.
but
Yeah.
gotta remember it's still a beautiful day.
That's right. That's right.
All right, Chief Roger Porter
bet.
has been our guest. Thank you, Chief.
You bet. Take care, Mike.
This is AM 1400 KVFD, the voice of Fort Dodge.
Your news, your town, your station. KVFD News when it breaks.
A 13-year-old boy was taken into custody
FD.
Yes, I'm the mayor of Manville. I'm so macho. So what if I get confused in my own house or forget where I'm at? Pastor Austin Hill has much more testosterone than I do. He's a much younger guy. And he's our guest. He's with the First Presbyterian Church, of course, senior pastor. And is your wife a senior pastor too, or are you the big cheese? And we went through that here a week or two ago. You're the big cheese, aren't you?
I'm the big cheese.
All right.
Yeah.
So you snap your fingers, and your wife, she just
everything I ask
hops.
for just happens, right?
I met your wife. I don't believe that at all, but that's all right. Pastor Hill and I try to do this with Joe Coleman as well, who's a deacon in the Catholic Church. We talk about, being Christians in a world that is decidedly unchristian, or is less Christian, certainly, than when I was young. And my parents informed me that my generation was decidedly less Christian than theirs. And they were right. We were a bunch of little potheads running around, dodging the draft and doing all kinds of things. Not me. I was bright enough to enlist. But anyway, we did have a very scary incident in town yesterday.
Yeah.
I was actually on the air with Brooke Bickford, our news director, when she was texted by someone that there had been a threat of a shooting over at Fort Edge Middle School. It's a pretty well-known story now.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, we had Police Chief Roger Porter in here first thing to kind of walk us through it step by step. I think I know my feeling was that I was pretty upset about it, and I thought it would be good to know from Roger Porter or other law enforcement people to assure us a little bit about how these things would be handled, and he did the job. Unbeknownst to me, and I'm glad he came on to tell us that there had been shooter training, and he called it something else.
Yeah,
but,
maybe the intruder safety training or something like that.
Something like that. But anyway, the training is around a possible incident at a school.
Wow.
And the training involved the school staff and the school administrators and everybody, and law enforcement. The sheriff, apparently there were sheriff's officers on site yesterday during this whole ugly scene. And a 13-year-old boy made a remark to another student that he should stay in the bathroom because he was going to shoot the place up. Well, that student promptly reported the incident. The school security officer notified the police. And that student, by the way, he told this other student this, then he disappeared.
Wow.
So it was kind of a tricky deal there for a while, but they rounded up this young person, 13-year-old male, I guess, who's now over at the training school in Eldora. Just a very, very frightening incident.
And how quickly things can change.
But we have been hearing over and over again, if you hear something or see something, say something. And this kid did. And that young man, I assume it's a young man, but it could be a young girl. That young student is a hero in my eyes. Certainly.
Yeah, really stopped what could have been an even more horrific day.
Boy, you don't know. You can't take anything for granted. I mean, if men can get pregnant, what else? I mean,
oh well, yeah. You never know. You never know what's going to happen in the world around us. And
no, you don't. But I, of course, as you know, I support individual gun rights. I'm a big believer, and I still am. But some of these shocking details challenge my belief. I still believe that what happens is a spiritual problem in our culture, in our world. Ministers used to be able to come forward, and they enjoyed great respect, no matter what denomination that they were with. And they would say, we need to do something about this problem, and something would be done. I mean, I'm told back 60, 70 years ago, you couldn't get elected to be the mayor of Boston, Massachusetts, unless the cardinal of that area endorsed you.
I don't think I have that kind of sway.
You don't have that kind of sway. But, well, in other parts, what the bishop or cardinal or priest said would have made a damn bit of difference.
Sure. Yeah.
But, that's just the way the world was at the time. But now, who cares what the Cardinal of Boston says?
Yeah.
Or the bishop.
Or who even knows? I mean, they're not even paying attention.
I don't know.
Yeah.
The last one I knew of was that cardinal that hid all the child abuse, and they shipped him out to Rome or something. I don't know. That was a long time ago.
I mean, I think societally we are really experiencing a lot of challenges especially in families. I think this is probably where the heart of America is being determined, is what's happening or not happening in families.
Yes.
And
What's a family now? I mean,
Well-
everything's a what if in the name
well,
of
exactly.
in
I
the
mean,
name of freedom.
I mean, there are so many instances. I've heard quotes from Randy Kuhlman in various uh, organizations and gatherings that he has been a part of, that I've been a part of in the last few months as well. Just about some of the stats, even in our own community, about kids who are growing up in single parent households who have basically an absentee father, where there is no father present in their lives. And that has a tremendous impact in people's development as they grow up. So there's less stability, there's less structure, there's less guidance, and maybe even most simply, there's less energy or time in single parent families for kids to get the kind of upbringing maybe that they used to be able to get, which included participation in a church. I think families are so exhausted nowadays that they don't even have energy for things that we used to maybe take for granted in our society.
Well, there was a feminist idea that still takes hold in some quarters, that men aren't necessary for childbearing. Whoever thought up that little piece of wisdom was so wrong and so stupid.
Well, and I mean, of course, to even bring up the
Yes,
whole
ladies and
single-
gentlemen, a feminist can be a complete moron. I mean, men can be, but boy, I'll tell you, that was a dumb thing to say.
I mean, to talk about single parent families, I mean, it's hard because there are all sorts of different circumstances that lead to those situations. And I'm not here to castigate anyone because of a situation they are currently in. But when kids are growing up without as many concerned adults in their lives,
Mhm.
of course, their upbringing is going to be diminished.
Mhm.
And it's not only if there's a mom and a dad, but are there other concerned adults too? There's been research done in churches that one of the biggest determining factors as to whether a kid will stay connected to a church throughout high school by the time they graduate at 18 or 19, one of the biggest determining factors is, do they have relationships with other adults outside of their families? So do they have adults who are actually engaged in their lives? And more kids are isolated, whether it's in their own families. They don't have the familial relationships with families and adults, and they also don't have relationships with adults outside their families. So there are people just not present to be a positive influence in their lives.
But they do have a relationship with their phone.
Very much so.
You know, I went over to the Presbyterian Church. Was it last Tuesday or was it Tuesday before?
I think not 2 days ago, but about a week, 10 days
About
ago.
a week,
Yeah.
And Randy Kuhlman and his group were over there, and they were a couple of police officers there and a deputy sheriff. And they
Yeah.
talked about,
Yeah. Mhm.
Talked to you were there.
Yeah. Yeah. Just last Thursday.
Talked about the dangers of, well, kids being online
Yeah.
and online predators, and they must be everywhere, and they're worldwide, and it's shocking. Some of the things
Mhm.
that were said, shocking depravity, and we are failing spiritually.
Well, I think to go one step further, because families are so exhausted, because they're overworked, overburdened, often screens are the way we do parenting. We do babysitting through screens because that's all we've got the energy for. So an entire generation of kids are being raised up by whatever values the social media algorithms feed them. And as we've been seeing, what shows up in people's feeds is what generates the most kind of a reaction, because that's going to get you to click. That's going to get you to stay on the page more. And so we get people who are angrier. We get people who are less resilient and able to respond to difficult situations in life. And instead of actually having real human to human interaction, it's all online.
Mm-hmm.
And to go one step further, even just with the pandemic, as more and more students had to take things online, there's a whole generation of kids now that have missed crucial parts of their development because they were not present with one another in school. And I know that's not to say anything about our school administrators. I mean, everybody was doing what they could in a really difficult time during COVID, but I think we're really starting to see the impact of kids and of youth who were basically not empowered to go through the same kinds of developmental processes that their predecessors had because they weren't able to be present in school with each other. So learning how to do group projects, learning how to handle conflict in person. I mean, imagine if you've got kids in second, third, fourth, fifth grade, and they're missing that crucial time in their development in person because it's all on Zoom for those couple of years.
God, I don't understand the world. I just don't. I'm just the old guy here at the corner of 2nd Avenue North and 10th Street
Well,
with a big megaphone.
I think even though yesterday was a really scary and sad day because we see how quickly things can get really bad, I am still encouraged by our community. I'm encouraged by the people who work in our community and by the size of our community because we are able to be present for one another. We are able to have an impact and have a role in the development of kids in ways that maybe some bigger cities or communities have been unable to do in recent years.
Sure.
And to your point, this coalition meeting just last Thursday, I was very proud of people in our church and our community that are working in law enforcement, that are making real strides to provide a safer environment for families and for kids. And I know I learned a lot by being at that meeting last week.
I did too.
And yes, it scared me a little bit, but also it gave me some good next steps. And I think the first one is for any family to be vigilant as they think about what the influences that their kids are having. They talked a lot about using apps to monitor cell phone or device usage, and you can make sure to know where your kids are so that they're not saying one thing to you and then going elsewhere. And
what kids would do that? My God.
And
not my kids.
But then especially online, right? I mean, you can find just about anything you're looking for. So, I mean, the access to firearms for kids, for teenagers. I mean, there are things like that that go well beyond what, say, my upbringing was. And I grew up even in a house where we did have guns, but they were locked away in a safe. And I didn't have the ability to go online and find things like that. Or similarly, I wasn't being bullied online. There was a reprieve from the day-to-day pressures of school and life, because when I came home, it wasn't just being in the thick of all of that all afternoon and all evening long like it is for students now.
Yeah, it is. There are a lot of pressure. I know my son's 40 now, or he will be in a few days, but he used to complain when he was a little kid that we were always taking him to things, and insisting that he participate. Okay, in sports, and then be in chorus, and then be in church, and Wednesday Night Live,
yeah,
and on and on. And
all
on.
the activities.
And he used to say, rush. What's the fun in that? And he was just a little kid at the time. And I had worked all day, and I got to get him to this thing. And I don't know, trying to have perfect kids, I guess.
Well, that's a prophetic voice that he had there.
It was. He's a sharp, kind of a sharp young man.
Well, and I think we sometimes, maybe wrongly, as parents, feel like we owe it to our kids to give them every possible opportunity, because heaven forbid our kids go without.
Oh God, that would be bad.
And so we run the rat race, and we fill our lives so that we don't end up having the margin in our lives to actually simply be present with our kids and to be a good example to them, to have conversations. I mean, we're often running from one place to the next, so we don't actually get time to really truly raise our kids.
What kind of conversation do you have with your kids?
Well, to be honest, I'm sometimes, in that same boat. So sometimes it's very little conversation at all, because, I'm running all day and then get home, and then they get ready for bed. We wake up in the morning, we rush out the door for school and do the whole thing over again. So, I mean, there was this whole event yesterday with this report of a potential shooting, and I didn't really get a chance to talk to my kids at all about it. So, this is me talking really about my own need to carve out time with my family as well.
Yeah.
So I would say in the church, we have not been immune to the challenges of our society. And I think maybe this is an opportunity where we as people of faith can can take a look at the way we're scheduling our lives and how busy we are, and maybe to think differently about how we fill our time. And I'm saying that to myself as well.
I was just thinking the other day, when I get on the air with Pastor Hill, we're going to talk about something pleasant and the uplifting value of Christianity. And then this kid has to go start talking about shooting up the place out of the middle school.
Well, there's always something, right? And I think maybe part of the value of the Christian faith is that we are reminded that we can be a people of hope, even when tragedies like this happen. And that doesn't mean we just stick our head in the ground and ignore what's going on. But we can, especially in this race to just fill our lives and fill our kids' lives with so many things. I think maybe what's rooted behind that is a little bit of a fear that that our kids are going to miss out, or that they won't have all of the opportunities that others will have. And maybe part of the hope we have in our Christian faith is that it's okay if we don't do everything, that God is in control. God is a good God, and God will be guiding us into the future, even if we don't fill our lives to the max, trying to, get the most out of every possible opportunity. Maybe we can slow down.
President Franklin Roosevelt used to give fireside chats on the radio. And one of the reasons he gave those was to be reassuring, because he told his staff that people are more connected to the sadness in life than they are to the joy. And when I got to college years later, I was sitting in psychology classes or classes of that sort.
Yeah.
The instructors made note of that most people are more connected to the sadness in life.
Well, think about like 9/11, for example.
Right.
A horrific day
Horrific
that
day.
has been etched into everyone's memory.
Mhm.
But think about the spirit of unity that was present in our nation in that horrible moment. And I think that demonstrates what you're talking about,
Yes.
where horror and sadness like that will create memories, and it will bring people together in ways that just about nothing else can.
Yeah. And we allowed dissent. There were always people who said, the United States had it coming. Of course, we rounded them off. We rounded them all up and sent them to Gitmo. Anyway, Pastor Austin Hill's our guest. We'll be back.
Divine Intervention is online at yourfortdodge.com, on Twitter at JMike1400.
It's 3:30. The news is next.
Are you experiencing farm FOMO? It's the fear of missing out on opportunities to make every soybean acre you farm more profitable. Luckily, FOMO is
Unitarian Church, you can certainly listen on the radio. Or you can go to my Facebook page, which is at Michael Devine, Devine, or the radio station Facebook page, which is at AM 1400 KVFT. And we are streaming live, Pastor Austin Hill and myself. Pastor Hill's the younger, better looking one. I'm the old goat.
Well, you always give me such an intro.
I have found that my later years, though I spend a lot of time by myself, because I'm a single man. I never got married after my wife died, although I tried. I found that these are some good years. These are some good. I can come and go when I want. I can do anything. Really, I can do anything I want to do.
Yeah.
I can spend a little time with my grandchildren or not.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know that's what I'm really looking forward to with being a grandparent, which, I mean, that's going to be,
that's a ways away.
Yeah, ways away. But yeah, you get to hang out with the little ones. And then when you don't want to,
you go home.
You don't have to.
Or they go home.
Yeah. It's pretty great.
It is pretty great. And I don't have to discipline like I have to discipline their father.
Yeah.
I don't have to be the bad guy nearly as much.
Yeah, exactly. You can take them out for ice cream, that kind of thing.
All that stuff. Where they live in Marion, they're only a couple blocks from this really nice ice cream place, and they know right where it is.
That's perfect.
Where should we go to eat? Let's go to Earl's. That's the name of the place, of course, is Earl's.
You say, all right, let's do it.
Let's go, man. Let's go. All right. Anyway, I was worried last segment that Pastor Hill and I, and this was my fault, that we'd always like talk about gloom and doom in relationship to Christianity. Oh, the world's no longer Christian. We're going to hell in a handbasket. My grandmother used to say that. We're going to hell in a handbasket.
Uh-huh.
I mean, she thought that then, and she'd probably died. Well, she died in 1978, and she was well into her 70s when she did, maybe 80 years old. So every generation, mine's probably no different.
Mm-hmm.
We always think the next generation, with all the weird, strange things that they do, as far as I'm concerned.
Sure.
And the bizarre music they listen to. I think the world going to hell in a handbasket. What kind of music do you like, by the way? And don't say hymns.
Punk rock.
Punk rock. You're a punk rocker.
Yeah. I mean, I don't quite dress it anymore, but yeah, 90s punk music, a lot of Southern California sort of skate punk. So,
skate punk. Now we're talking.
Yeah, so NoFX.
Was a skate punker. The best known skate punker was Sean Penn, the actor. He's actually a little bit older for the whole skate punk scene, but he really enjoyed it.
Yeah, well, I mean, growing up in San Diego, you almost couldn't help but listen to alternative and punk and skate punk and all of that. So yeah. So really, when people hear that I play the guitar, they say, "Oh, play me something," and I never can play something that they recognize because all I know is church music and 90s punk music. So. Like most people aren't going to know most of what I know. So
where'd you grow up at? Did you grow up in National City or?
So North County, San Diego, Carlsbad, right on the coast. Yeah.
Okay. So you weren't in the city limits.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. Like where Tony Hawk was from.
Yeah. San Diego still is the nicest large city in the country, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
There are beautiful cities. San Francisco used to be, but I understand it's kind of a dump now. And there's always interesting parts of every major city.
Sure.
I mean, you go to Chicago, and there's parts of Chicago, whoa, but there's also parts of Chicago that are great, Old Town, and
certainly.
St. Louis is another great example.
Mm-hmm.
But I think overall, despite some areas of town around the military bases, of course, and it's a military town there. I mean, we have MCRD there and all the Navy places. It's still the nicest big city, I think.
Oh yeah, it was a wonderful place to grow up. I loved it there, and but now here I am sounding like a jaded, cynical old guy. But I'm saying it's not the same as it used to be. It's more crowded. It's more expensive. It's a little bit dirtier, and I think back to what you were referring to earlier. There is a temptation every generation to say things are not as good as they used to be, and
when was this mystical time anyway?
Yeah, well. It's fascinating. Even the Israelites thought that. I mean, they were enslaved in Egypt, right?
Right.
And there's the 10 plagues, and they escape. They cross the Red Sea. And what do they first start doing? But they're immediately complaining. And they say, you know what? It's terrible out here in the wilderness. It wasn't so bad as slaves in Egypt. Maybe we should go back.
I don't know. I've never heard anybody being happy they were a slave.
Yeah, but that's what they were saying. So here's poor Moses dealing with this complaining for another 40 years. And it's just fascinating that far back in history, you go back 3,500 years, something like that, and you get people longing for how it used to be, even when how it used to be was slavery. And what they're moving into, while it's unknown, is at least an unknown in freedom. But all they're longing for is how it used to be.
Well, there was a time in my life, probably between the ages of 17 and 21, that I really think were the good old days, because I had a lot of fun. I was too old for parental supervision, so I did whatever the hell I wanted, and I learned a lot of things. And, but the thing I took away is at least the things I learned. And when I did something wrong, it was on me.
Yeah.
When I did something good or I accomplished something, that was me too.
It's a pretty good feeling.
That's an all right feeling. That's right.
And it's amazing. I would say some of the best few years of my life were also from 17 to 21.
Yeah.
So it's just, I wonder how universal that is, that formative
I remember
time.
the girls discovered their freedom as well. Okay, we're out of the house. We don't have to be home at a certain time. Sure.
Yeah. Well, I was in a Christian college at that time, so it was a little different scene there, I imagine. But
really, was it really? I think you Christian boys and Christian colleges, I think
there was a
you
scene
might have snuck over to the sorority a couple of
yeah,
times.
there was certainly there was a crowd to find if you wanted to, but yet you had to try a little bit harder. It wasn't just kind of there by default, like it seems to be for so many in that age group.
So were there drinking parties in Christian colleges?
There were,
now,
but
are you talking Princeton Theological or what are you?
No, this
about?
was before I went to Princeton. So I went to Seattle Pacific University for my undergrad. I was a psychology major, and this was in Seattle, Washington.
Yeah, well, it's a communist city up there too.
Well, yeah, I mean, it was
Seattle's a beautiful city, but it's totally communist.
I loved living there, but yes, all sorts of interesting worldviews, we'll say.
Genders, everything.
Yeah, and it was a Free Methodist school that I went to, and the Free Methodist denomination is sort of a smaller subset of the United Methodists, and pretty conservative, such that there was a dry campus policy. And even if you were of age, so even if you were 21 and off campus, you were not supposed to consume any alcohol. You even had to sign like a document that you would not partake in any sort of controlled substance as long as you were a student of any age at the university there. So, so you had to kind of go looking for alcohol, which you could find.
Yeah, sure you could. The military academies were the strictest universities that I've ever heard of. I had a nephew that went to the Naval Academy. Very bright kid. I mean, he was one of those kids never picked up a book and got straight A's all the way through school. And he was a top student at the Naval Academy as well, and went on to fly planes for the Navy. He was a naval officer, and he was very involved in bombing the hell out of Iraqis who needed to be bombed. So that's all good. But the life that they lived, especially in that first year,
it's intense structure.
It's very intense. And if you're a mama's boy, you're out, or a mama's girl now.
Yeah.
You're just, a classmate, I had a high school classmate. We really weren't tight friends, but he went to the Air Force Academy, which was pretty tough as well.
Yeah.
I mean, the military academies, they're still the gold standard, I think.
I think it's sort of the cream of the crop.
If you're a business person and you get a application from someone who's got West Point on their resume, you'll take a second look.
Yeah.
That is a very disciplined life.
I mean, that person had to be a top achiever in whatever their field. I mean, even to make it there and to then make it through and actually get that diploma.
A high school classmate of mine went to the Naval Academy. He was home by Thanksgiving, because it was tough.
Yeah.
Tough, and he didn't want any part of it.
But I think we do have this tendency to look back and to say, oh, it used to be so much better back when. And we all can fill in the blank, It
really wasn't,
And even if it were great back then,
life.
And that doesn't mean that good things are no longer going to come in the future. And I think part of the role of the church, one of the ways that the church can really have a significant impact in our time today is to continue to point to the good things that we see God doing in the world around us.
That's an important point. That's really an important point. because you can get weighed down by talk radio or talk television. And if you turn on NBC News and they're not having a fire, or
Yeah.
for 2 days now, we've been hearing about that awful typhoon they're having down in Florida.
Hurricane Ian, right?
Yeah, I guess that's it. Now, is that a male Ian or is that a female?
Well, either way, it looks like the floods are pretty incredible. However the storm wants to identify.
Yeah. There was actually a little bit of discussion about that.
Oh, really?
National way. Yeah, I have to be careful to make sure it's gender balanced.
But yeah, I mean, there are so many things going on. And I think what's so hard with the ubiquity of cell phones, of the internet, of the media, and I recognize I'm saying this while on the air, but the challenge is we can just be surrounded by negative news and thoughts that just it's oppressive after a while. We feel powerless. And I think sometimes maybe the best we can do is look right here at our own home, in our own town, in our own church, in our own schools, and say, where do we see God at work right here around us? And how can we join in with what God is doing already in our community?
I just felt like going for a drive on last Sunday. I didn't have anything else to do. It was an absolutely gorgeous day. I couldn't stand to stand inside. And I had nothing to do. Everybody I knew was doing something else. So I got in my car and headed north.
Yeah.
Because I heard the Congregational Church in Algona, my old hometown, was having an outdoor event centered on peace. So I thought it would be a discussion. It wasn't. It was more of a service, which kind of disappointed me. And, the other congregants, longtime members, were all looking at me like, what are you doing here? But I had this great feeling driving up there because, again, the combines were rolling through these golden fields, and the sky was perfectly blue, and the crops were golden. There was a lot of green vegetation around everything yet, and it's just an absolutely beautiful day, and I could feel God.
Yeah, certainly.
Really could. And then we have the most gorgeous sunsets this time of year.
I had a similar feeling. I was in Colorado earlier this week and visiting with other Presbyterian pastors. We have what we call a covenant group, where we make this commitment to meet together on a regular basis, more or less, kind of regardless of where we are in life. And so the 6 of us, we get together. It's been about 18 months since the last time we were there. And so we were up in the Rockies, staying at a YMCA camp. And as we were driving back down the mountains, we sort of philosophize. You get a bunch of pastors together for a few days and we start talking about all sorts of things. And so
you pastors are a wild bunch.
Yeah, exactly. So here we are discussing the problem of evil and how God can allow suffering in the world, and all this light stuff as we're driving over the pass.
Light stuff.
And some of these guys in the car, they're getting kind of riled up as they're, I wouldn't say debating, but kind of discussing with one another. And I couldn't help but just look out the window, and the aspens right now are just bright gold. And they were almost fluorescent in the sunlight with this deep blue sky when you're 10,000 feet up, that crisp air. And you look out and you think, my goodness, I mean, God is at work all around us. I mean, simply just in God's creation, if nothing else, you see that. And, right in the midst of these discussions about suffering and all these other things going on, I couldn't help but notice just the beauty and the color. And maybe it's because I've been in Iowa for so long to just see the mountains. I mean, that alone just kind of blows you away.
It does. I will tell you one thing. I was, where was I? I was in California, in Central California, and the high desert area, actually.
Yeah.
And I was there for a while. And when I came back to Iowa, it was this time of year, and I was struck by all the colors, because the high desert in California,
it's kind of all the same color.
Oh yeah. And I noticed that again when I became a truck driver a number of years later. I would drive from Phoenix through the desert to Los Angeles, to North Los Angeles, and that was a very colorless drive.
Yeah, just kind of brown, and a little bit more brown.
More brown, yeah.
Exactly. But I think even more than just the beauty of creation, I see God at work in the people here in this community, and the relationships that Sarah and I have been privileged to be able to cultivate over the years, with families in our church, people in town that we get to work with. And I mean, a case in point, I've mentioned it, but I'll bring it up again, is just this last Thursday in that Safe Communities Coalition. And to see Randy Kuhlman really spearheading, putting that thing together. He's a member of our church, and the work that he does with United Way and the Community Foundation is very much because of the faith that he has in Jesus. And that calls him to action.
Really? I thought Coleman was a pagan.
No, not at all.
He's on the way in.
Okay, yeah.
I bet he's listening.
Yeah. And
no, I know he's not a
no,
pagan.
I know. And Officer Johnson, Jolyn Johnson, is a Presbyterian as well. And so I was so encouraged just to see, I mean, the work that people in our community are doing day after day to try to make our community safer. And I'm not saying we ignore the bad things that are happening, but sometimes we get so focused on the bad things that we miss what God is already doing in the people and in the relationships that we have. So that last Thursday, I was just very thankful for our church and for our community and for the work that so many people are doing to improve our community. And that's just one example, but that's just from this last week. So as we look at the events of this last week, we can look at what happened in the middle school yesterday, and we can see that. We can then think to ourselves, oh my goodness, that's just, the next piece of evidence that things are terrible and our community isn't what it should be, and et cetera, et cetera. And yes, we can, look at how to improve, but also within this last week, we can look at examples like the coalition that met last Thursday, and we can look at the work that people do, and we can focus on that also as a part of our community to say, wow, there's great stuff going on. And we see God working through people and agencies every day all around us. So I think that is where I find hope in the midst of things looking bad and seemingly getting worse day after day. I see evidence of God at work all around us.
Yeah. I need to keep that in mind. I try to do a little morning meditation.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's not meditation. It's, what the hell's going to happen today?
Yeah, exactly.
My mind's always over in the corner going, oh, damn it.
Yeah. I heard Steve Rowe share once, within the last few years, we brought some of our youth group kids over to the Beacon, and we had a joint worship service.
Really?
Yeah. They do a chapel service, I think, most evenings there at the Beacon. And so we brought some of our high school students over, and to me, it's always a really powerful experience because men who are living there share some of their story and things they've been learning, and our students share, and we all kind of learn from each other. And while we were there, Steve was sharing something similar to kind of what you had just brought up, that on a given day, he'll wake up in the morning, and just like many of us, we have all these stressful thoughts, right? All this stuff I've got to do today, how maybe overwhelmed I am at a full schedule, or we pull out our phone and we look at the news immediately, and we already see, there's a forest fire somewhere, or there's, some other political leader that, has some scandal. And before we've even gotten out of bed, we're already in a pretty rough spot. And so Steve shared that the practice that he does, kind of like what you're saying, is a morning meditation where, regardless of what he's thinking, however he's feeling, he does not let his feet get off the bed and onto the ground until he's worked through those thoughts and feelings, surrendered them to the Lord, and said, I am going to face today with hope and excitement to see what God is going to do in my life. And I think that's a helpful way to start the day.
I think it is.
To kind of reorient in the midst of all that other junk that, just immediately floods us when we wake up.
I had a good conversation with you last week. If you remember what our topic was, it was homelessness.
Yeah.
Because I had seen a homeless guy and taken a picture of him.
Yeah.
And put it on the radio station Facebook page, 1400 KVFD Facebook page. But I talked about homelessness in Fort Dodge and Christian responsibility with Joe Coleman.
Yeah.
And Brian Beidelman, who I've known for a long time. Brian was in the radio business years ago, and he also had a vending business here. And we have a vending machine, of course. But anyway, he's now the chaplain over
the Beacon.
Yeah, and he came and spoke. He actually knew, or the people at Beacon of Hope actually knew the person that I'd taken a picture of. Mm-hmm. And if you recall, his name was William, and he had chosen to stay in the streets.
Yeah.
And boy, I thought about that often, and I guess I'm going to have to let William live his life.
It's a hard thing.
It is, because I have this rescue fantasy that I'm going to go in there and rescue William or something. And I think a lot of people do. And then we have a responsibility to him. He's obviously not responsible enough to make his own decision.
Which
Well, maybe
can-
he is.
Yeah, and to some degree, then maybe that's a way that we end up trying to feel better about ourselves, right?
I think that is, my Facebook page was or the radio station Facebook page was inundated with people who seemed to think that good wishes on Facebook elevated their position in life somehow.
Uh-huh.
And no, it doesn't.
Yeah.
That having a very strong opinion on homelessness was somehow, again, made them larger
Yeah.
than they really are or were.
Some kind of badge to be worn.
So, yes, I am a good person because I said this on Facebook.
Yeah. Well, and a challenge for every one of us then, I would maybe leave us with this call to action. If we feel that things around us are negative and hopeless, then I would ask each one of us, what is God calling you to do about it?
Right.
God has given you a brain. God has given you abilities and passions. And God has placed you in this particular context, maybe to do something about it. So whatever the situation might be, whether it's, youth who seem to be directionless, and family structures that don't seem to be how they used to be, whether it's crime or violence in our community or homelessness, fill in the blank on any big thing. What is God calling you to do about it? What's one step you can take to make an impact this very day?
And in William's case, I think God was telling me just to step back,
Yeah.
at least for that moment.
Sure.
Boy, it's hard for me to accept.
Well, and maybe there are other things you can do, even if it's not directly reaching out to him. Maybe your experience with him calls you to consider another kind of action, one that you haven't thought through just yet, but maybe it's a catalyst.
I think that's another good point. I'm glad you said that. Yeah, that's another great point, that having had this encounter that did affect me, that'll affect me the next time around.
Yeah.
So that's a good thing. By the way, Randy Kuhlman will be in. I think I mentioned that.
Yeah.
He'll be in here in a few minutes. I'll remind him not to be a pagan. Anyway, Pastor Austin Hill has been our guest. Any closing thought?
Well, I guess I would just reiterate, what is one action this very day or this week that you think you could do to address, even in some small way, some of the issues that come to your mind? And if you can't think of something, I'd invite you to bring that up to someone else and see what they say.
Thank you, Pastor.
My pleasure.
We've been speaking with Pastor Austin Hill of the First Presbyterian Church in Fort Dodge, and this is
sports at AM 1400 KVFD.
That's what we're doing. We welcome to the program once again, Randy Coleman, Nevin Mulholland. Guys, thanks for coming over a little early. We usually do this on Friday, but hey, what the heck? It's going to be a good day.
Starting the weekend early.
Starting the weekend early. I'm in favor of that, actually. Yeah. I mean, what a day. We've had a series of days. But it just
well, the whole week's going to be great going forward too.
Yeah, it is. I was telling Pastor Hill, and this is the truth. I didn't have anything to do Sunday. Everybody I knew was doing something else or sitting out sports page or something. It was something I didn't want to do. So I just got in the car and drove up to Algona, my old hometown, because they had a little peace conference up there. It's not usually my thing. I like war and violence. That's right. But it was such a beautiful day, and the fields were just golden, and the combines were going back and forth, and the blue sky, and still plenty of green. The trees, the ditches were all bright green yet. Just great. It was just a lovely, lovely day.
It really is cool during harvest.
It is.
And they're having a great.
Yeah, fall is great.
Yeah, but great weather to harvest right now. I mean, they're out there going hard.
Yes,
so
they are. We heard from Mike Sexton, Representative Scrapster, yesterday. He joined us on the air to complain about our news.
Oh, did he?
Yeah.
Why? What did you guys do that offended him?
He's in the combine all day, and of course,
I know. I saw his combine was out. Yeah.
Did you?
Yeah.
Well, the complaint was, and we're trying to do something about this. We're aware of this problem on this program, particularly because Brooke records the news. She's in here early. She records the news, and she leaves, noon, 1 o'clock, or whatever. She's always available. But the point is that I play the same news, the same recording twice in an hour. I do it right after the national news at 4 o'clock or whenever at the top of the hour. And then I repeat Brooks' recorded news at the bottom of the hour. And Scrappy is probably saying, like a lot of people do who listen to the radio all day, I don't want to hear that twice an hour, the same thing over and over again.
So he's got a valid point.
He does have a valid point. So next
week,
unusual.
No.
So next week I'm going to do Brooke at the top of the hour. Then I'm going to have the Scrapster report at the bottom of the hour. That'll be me doing some news and farmers and maybe a little Babylon Bee stuff, and that'll be the Scrapster report. But anyway, I was so fortunate. I went to the gym last night. I went over here. I still call it the YMCA. I don't know what the hell it is.
Lifting iron again?
Lifting iron again.
I'm telling you, it's working for you. I've never seen you look better.
I'm ready for a pose down with both of you, especially you, Coleman. Just stripped to the waist right now. We're on video.
I thought that was you on the front page of the Messenger.
Yeah, were you next to the lady lifting weights with her? I mean,
that was 2.5 pounds in each hand.
2.5 pounds. No, it wasn't me, as a matter of fact.
Okay.
Actually, the people look younger than all of us.
Low bar.
Low bar.
Yeah.
But anyway, I get back to the gym. I sit down, and I know the Torontos and the Yankees are playing, and I turn on television just as Aaron Judge is coming to the plate. And I saw him hit
timing.
61. It was great timing.
Yeah,
it was kind of a long at bat. I think the count was 3-2 when he hit one out, but he fouled off a couple. And the pitcher made a good pitch low and away, which I thought was a strike, but saved Judge from striking out. And then he served up the big pitch, and man, Judge is so big and so strong. Well, that bat, and it had a close up of Judge of his face holding the bat, and the bat looked like a toothpick in his hands.
He's got big hands.
Oh, huge man, 6'7", 280 pounds, and he hit that ball and just took off like a rocket.
It was the 4th fastest ball to ever leave a ballpark.
Really?
117 miles per hour.
Wow.
Yeah. I guess, again, I didn't see it, but I read about it, and they said it was like a shot out of there.
It was a line shot.
He got it on the screws.
He did. And here's the deal. I was watching ESPN this morning, and the ball was hit over the bullpen, and a fan had his glove, and he was reaching for Judge 61, and he couldn't quite get it, and the ball bounced off and fell into the bullpen, where the Toronto pitching coach grabbed the ball. But this poor guy, he looked like Joe Average, glasses.
Yeah, that'd been great if you got it.
Yeah,
I'm sure you probably would have given it to Judge.
He would have, but and Judge would have given him a little.
Oh, right, he would have got. Judge is an awful nice guy. I mean, he sure comes off like that.
He really does. He really does. And I read, and I guess I knew this, that he was. That he went and kissed his mother, who's half his size, by the way.
Boy, barely. I know it.
But he was an adopted. He was adopted as a child.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
I did not know that.
He and his parents are teachers still to this day. and they adopted him and told him when he was like 10 or 11 years old. And he said, I thought at the time that it occurred to me that I didn't look like them. He was probably taller by the time he was in the 5th grade.
He gave that ball to his mother.
He did, didn't he?
Yes, he did.
What a sweet guy.
Yeah.
What a sweet guy.
Yeah.
You can look up to a guy like that. You can take a little inspiration.
Are his parents African American or are they
no,
white?
No, they're totally white.
So it's like a baseball blindside story.
Yes. So, and it's if you saw him with his parents, you would say, "Oh, really?"
You look at the mom and say, "Hey, what's going on here?"
What's going on there? Because I would have thought something else.
Right.
I would have thought
you're
something
horrible,
else.
horrible.
We're horrible.
No,
people.
you are. I didn't think that.
You thought that exactly. You're sitting over there with that. Hey, you're on video. You're sitting over there with that little grin on your face. You were thinking it.
Just enjoying your commentary.
Oh, now you
like I always do.
But it was horrible commentary, but somehow you were enjoying it.
Well,
I don't think you're not selling me on this.
So he's got what, 7 games left?
7 games. You have to get
Okay.
62.
Yeah.
And I, from what I understand, Barry Bonds, Mark McGwire, Sammy Sosa are not in the Hall of Fame.
No.
They are not in the Hall of Fame, even though Sosa hit 66 the year that McGwire hit 70.
Wow.
And of course, Bonds came along after that and hit 73. And Bonds is also the all-time home run leader, ahead of Hank Aaron.
Yeah.
But nobody really cares about those guys since they came out with steroids. I've seen Mark McGwire play a few times back in the day, when he was with the Bash Brothers in Oakland and all that stuff. And I also saw him when he was a Cardinal. He's a huge man anyway.
Right.
I mean, he's just a great big guy. He's almost as big as Judge,
Yeah, he is. He would be comparable.
But you have to take the steroids into account. Now, having said that, I still think Pete Rose should be in the Hall of Fame.
I do too.
He has most all-time hits. His personal life was a little creepy, but so was Ty Cobb's. Ty Cobb wasn't a saint, but he was a tough ball player. Some things were written about him that weren't true. The point being is these athletes are just human beings, and they're going to have their fallibilities, and some of them are ugly to look at. But Pete Rose should be in the Hall of Fame, I think. What do you think?
I don't know.
I
don't know. I get it. Your argument is that I am okay with the guys taking the PEDs not going in. Okay, Sosa, McGwire, and Bonds. Pete Rose, on the other hand, did not have any advantage. I mean, he played and was very successful at the game, and so you're looking more at kind of a component of his personal life, though.
Right.
He was coaching baseball at the time that he was betting on the games, and he lied. I don't know. I don't have any heartburn one way or the other over the thing.
Yeah.
No, I don't either. There was I remember it, and you guys probably do too, that when Roger Maris broke Babe Ruth's record, Ford Frick was baseball commissioner, and he was a friend of Babe Ruth. And he decided that there had to be an asterisk behind Roger Maris's 61 to tell us that Roger Maris took 162 games to get 61, and Babe Ruth only played 154, which I would respond by saying was, well, Babe Ruth never faced the pitchers that Roger Maris did. They were pretty, every generation has better pitchers. I mean, Scherzer today, my God, and Kershaw out in Los Angeles, even though he chokes at playoff time, he's still a great, great pitcher.
No, that's what on this whole deal with Aaron Judge, it's even more remarkable because your point is well made that not only do you face better pitching, but you face it throughout the game. Mm-hmm. These guys only go 5 or 6 innings, and they're bringing in a new guy. So it's not like you can time this guy up. So by the 7th or 8th inning, you got him down. Oh, you're facing somebody different now, which makes it all the more remarkable and all the more difficult to hit 61 home runs. And this guy could win the Triple Crown, which is quite fantastic.
I hope he does.
I do too. I hope he does too. I never dreamed we'd see in my lifetime.
Who's the last one to do that?
The last Triple Crown winner,
Stan Musial.
No, not Stan Musial. He was the last Triple Crown winner.
Yeah.
Mickey Mantle won in the 50s.
Stan. They were at the same time. I have no idea.
You have no idea.
I was trying to act like I knew what I was talking about.
I'm trying to think of the guy from.
You do that quite well every time you come in.
Oh, Tony. Who's the guy that played?
Tony Gwynn?
No, from the Red Sox back, 40 years ago.
Tony Coglianaro.
No,
you're not talking about Yastrzemski.
Yeah,
Carl Yastrzemski?
Yeah,
with the Red Sox.
With the Red Sox.
Well, Yastrzemski might have. I don't know about that.
I
He was a
thought
great
maybe-
baseball player.
I thought he might have.
Al Kaline was in there. I mean, there were a lot of great
Maybe
ball
it's-
players.
For some reason, I was thinking Carl Yastrzemski.
That's really a good.
Good trivia question.
It is.
Anybody know? Neva's working his phone, but anybody know who's the last person to win the Triple Crown? 515-955-1400. We've ruled out Stan Musial, although he probably did win it one time.
Well, it was Seattle Slew.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing.
No,
It was Muhammad Ali. No, Arnold Palmer.
No.
I got on the wrong Triple Crown.
That's right.
Triple Crown of thoroughbred racing.
Yeah.
God, I can't even work Google for God's sakes. Oh, okay.
Oh, here we have another lawyer named Nevin in town, and also a baseball fan.
There you go.
He would be
Yes.
all over it. He's a
Yeah.
big.
He says, as far as the MVP, should it? And this is a good question. Should it be Aaron Judge or Shohei Ohtani? I always mispronounce the name, right? Shohei Ohtani, and that's a damn good question.
Well, and I will tell you, I would say it's Aaron Judge. Okay. I mean, if in fact he comes close to or does win the Triple Crown, and that's not to take anything away from Ohtani, but plus Aaron Judge, you know, the Yankees could win it all.
Right.
They're going to win their
Yeah.
division.
I
And
expect him to.
They're about the at least maybe the best, if not the second best team in baseball.
I'm going to make an early prediction here that might kill him, but I think the Yanks, are gonna win the World Series this year. But they may not. Yeah, Nevin's dicked around over there so long that I got to check.
You know, I'm so
myself.
slow with this stuff. I'm working on it. Just give me time.
All right. Okay.
All right. I'm at least I'm on baseball now, not horses.
Here we go. Cabrera. Miguel Cabrera, 2012, playing for Detroit.
Wow.
Hit 330, 44 homers, and 139 RBIs.
Okay.
You know, Cabrera didn't even occur to me, and I'm always bypassing Cabrera. I don't know why. By the way, the winner before Cabrera was Carl Yastrzemski.
You're right. And you were thinking of Frank Robinson, I bet.
Frank
When
Robinson.
he played for.
No, I was thinking of
Okay.
Yastrzemski, yeah.
Yeah, Yastrzemski.
Well, okay, but you had mentioned somebody for the. Oh, you were
I was
talking about
saying
Red Sox.
yeah,
Not
I said the
Cincinnati
Reds.
Reds.
And by the way, Mantle won in 56.
Yeah, you're right.
56? Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
All right, there we go.
There we go.
So
I wouldn't have ever got Miguel Cabrera. And he's 2012.
Now, by the way, the other lawyer named Nevin can call 955-1400 and join the conversation on baseball if he wishes. But I'm going to go with Aaron Judge. And I admit some of it's kind of emotional just because he's a big likable guy.
And he's making history. And
Well, because he deserves it.
yeah.
I mean,
But Ohtani, you got to say there's a case for Ohtani.
oh, it's unbelievable. I mean, he's the most valuable player on the Angels, but the most valuable player. Yeah, a case can be made for him. He pitches, he hits,
He
hits at a high level, and he pitches at a high level.
Yeah.
I've never seen anything like it.
You know, I never get to see Mike Trout. I heard kind of a disappointing thing the other day that Mike Trout doesn't really sign many autographs for kids, which I always thought he was kind of this good time guy, like in the Judge level, but maybe he is, maybe he isn't. But I don't get to see Mike Trout. He's still with the Angels, right?
He is, and so then you wonder. There's two guys there that have both been. Has Ohtani been the most valuable player? Was he last year? Well, anyway, these are two remarkable baseball players, and the Angels have sucked.
They really have.
Yeah, they really have. And so you wonder. You would expect them to be better.
You would. We're getting down. And by the way, the Yankees have clinched. That's no surprise. I think the Astros have clinched as well, their division.
So
I think
it's
they're all
Cardinals.
Did the Cardinals clinch?
Oh, yeah.
But Mike, I mean,
I think the real battle is between Atlanta and the New York Mets, I think, in the National League.
well, and then trying to get playing help me here. What's
Wild card.
wild card? Jeez. Anyway, you know, the Cubs are single-handedly keeping the Mets and the Phillies and other teams from getting the wild card. The Cubs are on fire.
That's a real Cub fan talking.
They're on fire. They've won 7 in a row, or 7 out of their last 8 games. They're playing great.
AM 1400 KVFD. Good afternoon. You're on the air.
Hey, this one's for Nevin.
All
Did
right.
you know that if you Mike Trout's rookie year was 2012,
Okay.
Okay.
and that was the same year that Albert went there.
Albert Pujols.
Now,
Okay.
yeah, and Albert has more RBIs in that time frame than Trout does.
Really?
That is shocking to me. That's a good trivia question. Also,
And he's only like 1 or 2 behind Rizzo
golly,
in the same time frame.
I hate that.
let me ask you this question: did Mike Trout win? Was he the most valuable player of baseball from 2012 on? Any year did he win it?
Did he ever win?
Yes,
I think he did.
I thought he did too.
I think he won it at least once.
You know, he's been beat up though. I suppose that really affects his stats.
Well, yeah, but Albert had 2 years where he was hurt too. He had 6 years with 90 or more RBIs, but they say he wasn't any good over there. Now you'll take 90 RBIs about any day, right?
Yeah, but you know, they did say that they were disappointed in his performance, you know, for as much money as they paid him. I hear what you're saying, but they were. I don't know if that's fair or not.
His average went down, but the RBIs were still there.
Yeah. Well, he gets 90 RBIs. He'd be a hero in Chicago.
Well, anywhere really, but
well, no, with the Cubs he would be.
He certainly would be, absolutely.
Yeah, and the Cardinals will take out the Yankees in the series.
Oh boy, I don't know.
See, now I knew you were a Cardinal fan.
Yeah.
I just knew you were a Cardinal.
You know that thing I was doing there. I did that for all players that could have been in there. First place in RBIs since 2012 is Goldschmidt.
Yeah, well, I think he got most of them against the Cubs.
I think he did too.
Yeah, there you go. And then Nelson Cruz comes in, and then Nolan Arenado, who did not play in 2012, his rookie year was 13, is third of all time. Freddie Freeman comes in there, and then Rizzo's one ahead of Albert, and then Albert. That's all players. Machado, Stanton, all players.
Pretty
now,
interesting. Two of them are on the Cardinals. You should beat the Yankees.
Now, I'm telling you, the Dodgers took their division by 20 games. Are you still going to tell me the Cardinals are going to the series?
Heck yeah.
Okay.
That means nothing now. It'll be a series.
That is really true.
Series, you know,
well, that's
to get
true.
there, the championship series.
No, that's really true. It doesn't mean anything. It's based, you know, the one thing who's healthy and who isn't. And I haven't been paying close attention, but
yeah, that's why I never liked this playoff. I'm old school baseball. Just have an American League pennant winner and a National League pennant winner, and let's have a World Series. Never mind all these wild cards and playoff games.
Oh, Mike, but it's good for the game.
Well, it's not good for
it. Generates a lot of interest.
It generates a lot of money for the owners.
Well, because people are interested in that.
People are interested
in the playoffs. Yeah.
All right. Hey, Cardinal fan, are you interested in this? The playoff system?
Hell yes.
Well, I'm not sure I agree with this year going with 2 teams getting a bye on the first round. But
who are the 2 teams that got a bye?
Well,
the Dodgers and the Mets are going to get a bye in the first round, and the Yankees and I'm not sure who's second over in the American League are going to get first round bye.
How are the
Houston?
How are the Mets getting a bye? They haven't clinched their division yet.
Well, they got the second best record.
That is the only division. The National League East Division is the only division, and I saw this on ESPN this morning. This is the only division that somebody hasn't clinched.
But how many wins do they have?
They have 97, as does Atlanta.
So
whoever wins the division gets the bye.
Yeah. Well,
if Atlanta wins it, they'll get the bye.
The Mets have actually played one less game, as this paper came out this morning, than Atlanta has. Atlanta has a 97-59 record, and New York's 97-58. So it's just a matter of games played. But I had to call you on that one because I don't. That's the only
close.
That's the only. Well, of course, but that's the only division that isn't clinched, and the Mets couldn't get a bye. I guess
they will. They could get a bye.
If they win the division, they'll get
if
the bye.
They win the division,
right.
Yeah,
that's his point.
Yeah, I know his point. I think you're the one that's confused.
Oh, you see what we put up with here?
Okay. Did you go back to St. Louis and you're still going around saying what do Cardinal people think anyway?
They're going to get it. Yep. I went to the game on Sunday there where Cincinnati was in town, and I was hoping for Albert's 700 that day, but didn't happen.
Oh,
that's
great.
Another big baseball story. But I think all you guys, every time I talk with you guys, you still think Ozzie Smith's playing shortstop. I got to tell you, he retired. All right. Hey,
He did?
yeah.
Oh, heck, I thought he was still on the roster.
I'll talk to you later. Thanks for calling in. 431
Thanks.
AM 14.
We got a one listener,
We got one listener.
and I never
We
thought we
have
had
two.
any.
My mom listens.
Does she?
Yeah,
All
yeah.
right.
You mean to say your mom doesn't?
No, my
here just a minute ago. We're talking about the start of the basketball season. What did you guys say? They're going to start games in a month? Come on.
Yep. They are.
No kidding.
Let's get it on.
Oh, God. You guys will be hell to live with then, because that's all you want to talk about is basketball.
Oh, it isn't. I love talking football.
Yeah, well, let's talk football. Nevin, I got you on the video here, and all anybody sees is your nose in your phone. There you go. There he is. What a good-looking guy he is. Ladies and gentlemen, Nevin Mulholland, Star of
Yeah,
Stage.
sorry about
Star of Stage.
Randy hogs
There's
the camera.
Randy hogs the camera?
Oh, yeah, he does. That used to be my seat.
Why are we on it? Radio is supposed to be for people that aren't supposed to be on television.
Well, I started out my first 10 years that I was Michael Devine, the man with the perfect face for radio. But pretty soon everybody started to copy me in that regard. Yeah, just everybody. But we got to talk football. It's a big football weekend. There's one Michigan fan in the whole town. That's Dr. Jim Meyer. I'm gonna make a prediction here. Should I make a prediction? Or
sure.
not?
Yes, please.
All right.
Pick Michigan, please.
All right. If you're going to go that way, I just won't predict. But I watched the Iowa State, not the Iowa State, but the University of Iowa and Rutgers game front to back. Of course, as a Hawkeye fan, I enjoyed what I saw. I didn't think Rutgers was worth a damn, frankly. And Patriots did seem to have a better day. But again, I wonder about the quality of the opposition there. Again, Rutgers didn't.
No, we only scored one touchdown.
Yeah, we only
the whole
scored
game.
one. Yeah,
I mean, other than the defense, the offense only
and
scored
he's still
one
throwing
touchdown.
the ball. He's not throwing the ball well. He threw the ball twice when there were no receivers in the area. I mean, I know that happens, but he's just he doesn't. I guess he's going to be the guy the rest of this year. Knowing as stubborn as Ferentz is.
The thing that I liked about the Hawkeyes against Rutgers, at least our running game got much improved against Rutgers. And Rutgers was expected to have a decent defense going into that game. But I thought our line play was better. I noticed
offensive line play.
Yeah. And, no one's mentioned this, but I noticed that they went back to the old Iowa zone blocking schemes. And that's where you hand the ball off to the back, and then he can cut back. And we had a lot of cutback runs in that game, and it worked very, very well. And so they went back to that old offensive line blocking scheme, which it's not an old scheme. I mean, a lot of teams use it, but I thought the line did much better in that regard than they had been doing all year, obviously. But we're still last in Division I football. Our offense is still at the bottom.
We still are.
So we're going to get that rectified against a really good Michigan defense on Saturday.
So there's no chance Brian Ferentz will apply for the Nebraska head coach job.
He's getting a lot of recommendations from people from Iowa, but I don't know. But yeah, that'll be an interesting game. We hope the Hawkeyes can compete and make a game out of it. And there's been times where Iowa's been a big underdog, especially at home, and they come out and they surprise everybody and win. So let's hope that happens, because there's nobody. It's fun to beat Michigan whenever you can.
Oh yeah. And we've had some success against Michigan in recent years.
We have, and not last year. We did
not last year. Well,
Big Ten championship game, but
no, we didn't.
So that'll be an interesting game. And then the Iowa State-Kansas game, I think it's really going to be an interesting game, because you got undefeated Kansas. Interesting enough, the AP top 25, number 25 is Kansas State, who looked really good and beat Oklahoma last Saturday.
Did, didn't they?
Yes.
I couldn't believe that. I saw little bits of that game.
And then number 26 is Kansas. So two Kansas teams are ranked 25 and 26, but that'll be an interesting game. Kansas hasn't played very good competition yet. They're undefeated, and Iowa State, of course, has played Iowa and Baylor. So, and they beat Iowa and gave Baylor a really good game. So, I think Iowa State's favored, aren't they, Nevin? By
three and a half. Yeah. I'm telling you, if you haven't watched Kansas, watch Saturday. They are one entertaining team. Mike, if you haven't watched, if you want to watch how our offense should be run, watch KU. Now,
I can watch practically any team.
No, but this is a funky offense. This offense is high octane, and they have a quarterback. Now, saying that, Iowa State has a very good defense, and maybe they figure it out. But this quarterback, Daniels, man, is he efficient, and is he an athlete? And if he keeps playing at the level he's played these first 4 games, he's going to be in the hunt for the Heisman. I mean, last week against Duke, he had 5 touchdowns, 4 throwing and 1 running, and he's their leading rusher, if I'm not mistaken. And they have a couple really good running backs. They're fun. They run kind of a triple option, but it's an option pass.
And where did they get that guy? Kansas football has sucked for years. Now all of a sudden
they got lucky with Daniels. He's a local guy, I think, a Kansas guy that didn't really play much last year, and he's just come out of the woodwork. But they also went to the transfer portal big time, and they brought in 11 new guys. And these guys are gamers. This Leopold's put together a nice squad. You know, they'll learn a lot about Kansas will going against Iowa State's defense, who's pretty good.
Right.
You know, and so it should be an entertaining game because I think Iowa State can move the ball too against their defense, Kansas's defense. So, and they'll be jacked up down there in Lawrence. They're, 4-0. That's crazy. They haven't been there for a long time.
Wow. Yeah, they haven't been there for a long time.
Yeah.
Now, this is your team, right? The Jayhawks?
Yeah.
All right.
Well, that's my,
I mean,
football.
You had a kid go to school there.
I did, right.
Did you
right.
have 2 kids or just 1?
1.
Okay. So
One.
is that where you got the Kansas thing? Or did it bleed over from basketball or what?
Well, nobody brags about being a Kansas football fan until this year. I am the only guy
or a K-State
in the Midwest that has shirts that say Kansas football. Guys say, "Why are you wearing that?" I just got it. Now I'm feeling good about it. But and that's a big game for Iowa State too. By the way, they do not want to have back-to-back losses in the Big 12. Which, by the way, I think there's a lot of parity in the Big 12 this year.
Yeah, I think so too. I'm a little disappointed in Iowa State. I thought they could have beat Baylor. I was anticipating that they would, but they didn't. They didn't play their best game, I don't think, against Baylor.
Well, I don't know. I mean, Baylor's a good football team.
Well,
very well coached,
but I thought Iowa State was better. I do. I'm not a Baylor fan to start with, and that's probably coloring my perception. I'm just not a Baylor fan. So I really wanted Iowa State to beat them, but I didn't think they were that good. I didn't think they were I didn't think they were so good that Iowa State couldn't beat them.
Baylor was picked to win the Big 12 this year.
Well, good for them.
So you thought Iowa State was better than them?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
I don't know if Iowa State's better, but I thought they could have won the game
I did
Saturday.
too.
They had a couple things happen. The fumble down as Brock's going across the goal line.
Well, he got it back though. They counted that. It was a touchdown.
Oh, did they?
Yeah.
Okay. The calls were brutal.
They had 2 or 3 really
One
bad
on
calls.
third and
I've
long.
never seen Campbell go off like that.
Well, and it was fair.
It was fair.
I would have lost my mind too. It was such a bad call, and it was right in front of the white hat.
Call.
Yeah, it just there was no reason to make that call. Just none. You got to be
Arrogance.
looking to make a
Arrogance.
call.
I don't trust when we get down in Texas. I don't trust the officiating crew of any Texas official to give us a break. And I'll tell you, back when, maybe I told you guys this story, back when Paul Rhodes was still with Iowa State, Texas came to town, and really Iowa State handled them. But the head
That was a bad call too.
that was a horrible.
Where he stripped and took it 99
Stripped,
yards.
Yeah, that's right. And the official who was on the mic, on the stadium mic, had a real pronounced Southern accent, and he just seemed to be sticking at the Iowa State fan. Oh no, this play here, no, that wasn't right. Shut up! And Rhodes went off. Rhodes went off at the press conference after the game, and the Iowa State fans. I mean, I was the worst. That's the only time I've ever lost it at a college game, and I've been to a lot of college football games. But I lost it there, and the only other time I lost it was one of my son's high school wrestling meets. But
we're not going to. You got
don't
thrown
wanna
out of the
talk about it.
gym
I was thrown out of the gym. Did I? Oh, you guys! I told you the story
multiple times.
Oh, okay. I forget. Well, I don't remember. I got lost in the Hy-Vee parking lot the other day. I mean,
I believe it.
Like you were at Fairway, by the way.
We saw you roaming around.
God, I was looking for Fort Dodge Fruit and Grocery, but I couldn't find the place. All right. Anyway, yeah. So you're gonna. So who are you gonna pick for Iowa State this week? I mean, you got the Kansas guy right here. What are you gonna do?
Well, I think it's gonna be a heck of a game. I'll go with the Clones. So
You're gonna go with the Clones.
Yeah, I'll go with the Clones, and I have to go with Michigan, even though I went with Rutgers last week, and the Hawkeyes killed them.
Oh, they did.
So what do I know? But I'll go. Michigan is a 10.5 point favorite, I think. But I won't be surprised if Iowa gives them a heck of a game. I really won't, even though we kind of play with one hand tied behind our back with our offense, So we'll see.
We're a different kind of team most of the time at Kinnick. I mean, we're always competitive, I think, there, as opposed to if we played Michigan at Michigan, I think they'd roll us.
Yeah.
But I think that's a great equalizer when you're at home. And Iowa does have the knack for rising up and beating these teams that they shouldn't beat, that are highly rated, highly favored. They truly do have, when it's at Kinnick.
Yes.
It's most of the time it's at Kinnick.
And you talk to these coaches that come in there, they all say the same thing, that Kinnick is one of the toughest places to play because the crowd is right on top of you and they're loud. And
it's a great stadium.
I mean, you only got like 12 feet between the out of bounds and the first row. And so they're right on top of you, and the crowd does a great job. And I know every coach that comes in there talks about having to deal with the Kinnick crowd. So it'll be a rowdy bunch on Saturday as well. So that always helps a lot, especially if our punter keeps putting the ball inside the 5-yard line all the time, which he's pretty good at.
KVFD, you're on the sports show. What's up?
We want to hear the story, sir.
Want to hear what story, sir? Oh, you
one where you got thrown out of the gymnasium.
Oh, no, you don't want to hear it. Here, I'll just put it this way. Newton was in town, and one of the great Fort Dodge wrestlers, I can't remember. Oh, Reed. Reed was this Pat Reed, the insurance guy, was his son. I think his name was Bruce.
Bruce.
Well, what was his name then? All you know is I'm wrong, as usual. Anyway, Reed was the coach of the Newton team, and he was a Fort Dodge guy. And he was in school with Ed.
I think it's Bill Reed.
Bill Reed? I think it was Bill Reed, now that you say it. Anyway, Newton was in town, and Ed
Birnbaum,
yeah.
This is what we do. We just kind of walk him through it. Go ahead.
Anyway.
Do you want me to tell the story?
No.
Okay. That you weren't going to tell.
They were on, Birnbaum was, and Fort Dodge was going to have to forfeit a match. And my son usually wrestled at 215. Well, Newton had this great 215-pounder. And he was a black kid, real strong, real aggressive kid, real good wrestler. So Birnbaum just booted my son up to the heavyweight match. And for some reason, that really got on under Reed's collar. And Reed stormed across the mat over to Birnbaum, and he was raising hell with him. And anyway, the heavyweight was a great big kid from Newton, but he was like a football offensive lineman that they just wanted on the wrestling team. He wasn't a good wrestler. And Luke really did a good job with him, but they did get into overtime, and Luke made a mistake and locked his hands. And Woody was a ref and gave the Newton wrestler 1 point, and that was the deciding factor. And it was just really a back and forth. The whole night was back and forth, and Luke's match was back and forth. And when he lost, I went insane. And I actually started to move toward the mat. And some guy, I don't even remember who it was to this date, grabbed me and said, Mike, he was a big guy. He was bigger than me. He was probably 6'4", and he was a strong guy, and he had me by the shoulders. He had me by the shoulders. I was wearing a jacket that was zipped up. And he said, Mike, you don't want to, he kept whispering in my ear. And he grabbed me and he kept inching me back toward the door. And I was just carrying on. And finally he got me on the hallway, and he said, now go this way. And he pointed me to the outside door, and he said, and don't come back. And I didn't. But the next time I went to a Dodger wrestling meet, all the little kids around that area were calling, here comes the crazy guy.
Hey, Mike, thanks for the story, and good job, you guys. Love listening to you. Be blessed.
Thanks. All right, thanks. Who's going to win the Iowa game? Who's your pick? Iowa or Michigan?
Michigan will probably take them by at least 10.
Okay, how about the Cyclones versus Kansas?
They're going to be – Cyclones are mad. They'll throttle them.
You think they're going to beat Kansas? Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Right,
All right. Be blessed, you guys. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks for calling in. We got 2 listeners. This is one of our best days.
Oh, you are so negative waves.
No, I'm glad people are calling in.
That's right. Yeah, we don't ask for calls enough.
Well, they all want to hear about you getting tossed out of the Dodger.
I always thought because we just have one phone line.
I like the great story where a kid on the other team threw a basketball at the official.
Oh.
Threw it as hard as he could. And who was the official, ladies and
That's
gentlemen?
right.
Who was the offending party here? That was Mulholland.
I don't even remember that story.
No, yes, you do.
That
You
was
told
our traveling team when we were playing that all-star team from Sioux Falls.
Oh, that was down at Corpus
How
Christi.
did
Corpus.
Cranbrink get into it?
Cranberry.
Wasn't Cranbrink
That was a
on the
different
team?
night,
That
a
was
different game that we were fishing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Horrible.
Wait, you and Cranbrink were fishing,
Yeah.
or was he one of the coaches?
No, he and I were officiating.
Oh, yeah. Was it it wasn't a high school game?
No, it was one of those traveling tournaments.
Actually,
AAU.
the greatest basketball story, local basketball story, was the Marlowe story that cannot be repeated on the air.
Don't even go there.
There's many of them.
So, okay, now are you going to betray your home state here, Mulholland, or are you going to stick with the Cyclones, or what are you going to do?
Well, I like KU to win, but I tend to agree that it's hard to I'm gonna pick Iowa State, but I'm hoping KU rises to the occasion. I think it'll be a competitive
It might
game.
be the first sellout they've had in how many years?
Well, they had one last week.
Did they really?
Yeah. The Duke game was sold out. It was they were hanging from the
Okay.
rafters. And Duke was not a bad team. They really weren't. Elko is the coach now. He does a really nice job. They had a really good quarterback. This guy could wing it. Yeah, but I don't think they're Iowa State though either. I certainly not on defense.
I will throw. I'll throw this out for the wrestling guys. Carver Hawkeye has had more sellouts when the Iowa Hawkeye wrestlers are there than any other wrestling team in the Midwest.
Oh yeah,
and maybe the country. 14,000 plus.
The country.
Country,
over the country. Yeah, and the Brands brothers, they're kind of an entertainment in themselves.
They really are
on the sidelines there.
Yeah.
So anyway, do you guys want me to pick? Or do you,
What do you like?
I'm going to go with Iowa State over the Wildcats.
Excellent. It's
They're
the Jayhawks.
not playing the Wildcats.
Yeah, they're playing the Jayhawks.
Oh,
but,
okay.
close enough.
Okay,
All right.
Was I at Fairway?
You might have been.
And I know, boy, I struggle with those Hawkeyes, But,
well, how can you pick the Hawks?
well, Ferentz does rise to the occasion every now and then.
This would be huge. This
would be the
if
upset of the
if
century.
they would get Michigan at this stage of the year, it would really catapult them into the second half of their season.
There's a lot of chatter around the state about how bad the Hawkeyes offense is this year. And as you guys noted last week, Kirk Ferentz has thin skin, and he doesn't like his kid, even though the kid's like 50. He doesn't like his kid being criticized, and he doesn't like his coaching decisions. And even you said, Randy, who were they playing when they finally won at 2:30 in the morning or whatever it was? Second game.
That was Nevada.
Nevada, right? Yeah. That Ferentz seemed to be giving the fans the bird by keeping Petros in the whole game.
Kept him in the whole game.
They were just killing Nevada.
Padilla has not seen the field this year.
If I was Padilla, I'd be looking transfer portal, frankly. I mean, if they're going to be that dumb. But I think Ferentz is really motivated to win this game. Really motivated for it. That reason, I'll pick Iowa over Michigan, but by a touchdown, if that. If that.
There goes Iowa's shot.
Oh, okay. I have been wrong recently. I've picked a couple of.
You're always wrong.
Yeah,
No, I'm
always.
not always wrong. I'm not always wrong. I mean, you guys want me to be wrong, but unfortunately,
No, we want
lately,
you. We want you to succeed.
No, you don't. I have picked a team to win, and then they went on to win, which is kind of weird.
It is.
Strange things happen.
So I'm hoping it happens this time. All right. So we're kind of on the same page this time around, except for them. You're picking the Hawks, right? You're not picking the Hawks.
I mean, I'm rooting for them, but I can't.
We're all on the same page.
Yeah.
You picked the Hawks.
I
Manny
picked
and
the
I
Hawks.
picked Michigan.
All right.
We all picked Iowa State.
Well, okay. All right.
Go Jayhawks.
Go Jay. Thanks for coming in, guys.
Okay.
All right.
All
Thanks,
it's,
Mike.
5 o'clock. Thanks for listening. This is KVFD Fort Dodge Iowa.
This is Gary Rima, the voice of the UNI Panthers, and you can listen to exciting Panther sports right here on the Voice of Fort Dodge, AM 1400, KVFD.
This is a Fox News alert. It's a hurricane again. I'm Lisa Lacera. The National Hurricane Center says Ian is now a Category 1 storm. It's about 335 miles southwest of Cape Fear, North Carolina, with maximum sustained winds of 75 miles per hour. It's expected to approach the coast of South Carolina tomorrow, and that has officials on high alert.
They're urging people to be wary not only of the rain, which could potentially drop up to a foot of water here in this area, but also the storm surge, several feet anticipated. So they're warning people about that, and also the high winds, which could lead to a multitude of power outages.
Fox's Molly Line in Charleston, South Carolina. Ian made landfall yesterday morning in Florida as a Category 4 hurricane. The city of Fort Myers, one of the hardest hit areas. More than 2 million in the state are still without power, and thousands are trapped by flooding from storm surge.
The people in Florida are very resilient. They're strong. They bounce back from these incidents. I made some trips out through some neighborhoods, and while people said, well, I lost this, we got this happen, they usually ended it with, but I'm glad to be here.
Mayor Kevin Anderson, Governor Ron DeSantis.
We're committed to restoring the infrastructure as needed. That is not going to be an overnight task. That is going to be something that is going to require a lot of love and care. It's going to require a lot of resources, but we're going to do it because we understand how important it is.
President Biden has already approved disaster funding for the area, which can include grants and low-interest loans to help residents and businesses rebuild. The Senate has approved a short-term